watching ABC's Wide World of Sports.
The drivers of the CART FedEx Championship Series are ready to go to the green flag for the 15th time this season in a championship battle that gets tighter and tighter with every race. We're in Canada for the Molson Indy Vancouver. Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Page, and you know it's hard to find a race fan any more knowledgeable or enjoys it more than the Canadian race fan. And what a show they are about to see today. The championship fight continues on. Michael Andretti is the points leader, but there are 6 drivers within 25 points of Michael. So there are a lot of names to consider. We begin with Canadian Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy is superb on street circuits. Last year, he was victorious in Houston and scored a second at both Toronto and Detroit. This season, he won at Long Beach and came home third at Toronto. Tracy brings the momentum of his road course win 2 weeks ago at Elkhart Lake to battle in the Vancouver streets today.
And today, Paul Tracy enjoys the best starting position he's ever had in 9 trips to the streets of Vancouver. Were it not for a last-minute qualifying run by his teammate, Dario Franchitti, it'd have been Tracy on the pole. He starts with his teammate in the front row. The key for Paul Tracy, who's only had one top 10 finish in the past, is to have a clean day today. You consider the history between the cool drivers, it has been tough at times. They must be precise. They can't have contact on the start. That's foremost in their minds as the engines are fired.
Cristiano De Mada led 73 laps on the Toronto streets. Could he see more Canadian luck today and score the second win of his young career? Point leader Michael Andretti took the checker to Toronto and is a 3-time Vancouver winner.
Today, De Mada and Andretti start together on road number 4. And of course, for Michael Andretti, he is the undisputed king of Canada, considering he's won 6 times in Toronto, 3 times here. He only starts 8th today, but we know for Michael Andretti, that's never been a problem for him in the past. Now, right next door, Cristiano De Mada, he actually is very fortunate to be starting in the 7th spot. He had all kinds of trouble in qualifying, actually blew an engine in final qualifying before he could really post a time. And this morning, the fastest car in the warm-up. De Mada, look for him to go straight to the front.
In '99, Dario Franchitti tried a daring move on the leader, Juan Montoya. It ended Franchitti's chances at victory. Montoya went on to win.
Passing is difficult at best on this 1.7-mile temporary street circuit. Many drivers take what people would consider unreasonable risks trying to move ahead through the field. But consider that the rumors abound regarding changes in teams and drivers for next year. For drivers like Patrick Carpentier and Mark Blundell, their entire professional careers could rest on a good finish today. You've got championship pressures. You've got drivers whose careers hang on the results. You've got 90 laps, which could be very exciting in a pressure-cooked street fight.
Here's the way they qualify. Dario Franchitti makes it back-to-back poles. His teammate Paul Tracy starts alongside on the front row. Penske drivers De Ferran and Catherine Evans make up the second row. Back in row 3, defending series champion Montoya and Christian Fittipaldi. In the 4th row, there's Cristiano De Mada and Michael Andretti alongside. Row 5, Max Pappas and the likable Roberto Moreno. The 6th row, Jimmy Vassar and Oriol Servia. Rookie Oriol Servia has 5 top 10 finishes on road courses, including a podium at Detroit. The 7th row, Mauricio Gugelmin and Tony Kanaan. Today, Mauricio returns to the side of his lone kart victory 3 years ago. In the 8th row, Adrian Fernandez and Kenny Breck on the outside. 6 straight top 10 finishes has Adrian Fernandez poised for a title run. In the 9th row, Michel Jourdain Jr. and Patrick Carpentier. The 10th row, Alex Tagliani and Mark Blundell. In the 11th row, Nemo Gidley and Shinji Nakano. Gidley has scored points in all 4 races since he joined Della Penna Motorsports. In row 12, Tarso Marquez and Alex Barron is back. And alone in the 13th row is Luis Garcia Jr. We have 90 laps, 2-hour time limit here on this 1.7-mile circuit, and fuel, once again, is going to be pretty critical with a very narrow window. Let's take a look at the track itself.
Principal passing area here at Vancouver is heading down off the long back straightaway into turn number 6, where the cars reach their highest speed at 190 miles an hour plus. Slowest corner, well, that's back in the chicane, the 10-10A complex at 45 miles an hour. Occasionally, a driver will get a good run and be able to make a pass coming off 160 mile an hour braking area into turn number 1. And then, as we've seen in the past, watch turn number 4. There's been fireworks there in the past. Maximum G loading, turn number 5. The drivers exceed over 3 Gs of cornering force.
Got some good onboard cameras for you here at the Concord Pacific Place. There's Mark Blundell. He's going to start well in the back. A lot of talk about his future in the series. Max Pappas, well, he's in pretty good shape. He signed for oncoming years with Team Ray Hall. Got his silver helmet on today. Juan Montoya. So they work around. It's a very tight circuit and difficult for them to align into their rows of 2. A lot of discussion about that among the drivers in the front couple of rows. They're hoping to get at least 3 rows off the corner nice and neat. Onto the pit straight now. The start-finish line lies just ahead. And they wave that start off. Jim Swintel, the starter, said, nope, I'm not going to accept that one. Lap count starts. Race starts, but under yellow. He had what looked to me to be 2 good rows, almost 3 coming off.
Well, I would think for a lot of the drivers, they look forward to that yellow flag. It's relatively cool outside in the 60s. The tires are very hard. The drivers need a lot of time to get heat into these tires. Now watch, you can see the 2 cool cars. The problem here is that Paul Tracy is leading Dario Franchitti. You can see the Penske cars are split, but Jim Swintel, the chief starter, will not throw that flag if Dario Franchitti isn't obviously in control of the start.
Well, it certainly wasn't the nice 3 rows at the front that they had hoped for. Gary Gerald.
A couple of notes relating to tire temperatures. One of the Firestone engineers just gave us knowledge a few moments ago, Paul, that the track temperature right now, 78 degrees. By racing standards, that's still very cool. But the sun is shining down now. The field has been given an extra lap to get temperature in the tires. Now a bonus lap because of the yellow. It was interesting to note that as both cool cars left to start the parade lap, they burned out of the echelon style position. The only 2 cars that we saw do so. They left huge black marks there, trying to build immediate temperature into the tires as they await the start of this race.
No, I'm surprised they were the only ones to really burn out, because everyone's worried about getting the tire temperatures up. It is cool temperatures in the low 70s. There is some rain around the area, but not immediately in the area. We may have a clear day for the race. A couple of facts for you to consider on sweeps here in Canada. Off of the corner, looking for the flag. This time it's green. Christian Fittipaldi really locks him up heading into the first corner. The 2 green cars are able to make it through with no problems whatsoever, and everybody else hunts for position. Now they begin to turn into the clear, a long open run for them. Montoya looking. Can't get Castroneves. Past the support pit.
Now Castroneves has a little bit of breathing room. You can see he was driving quite defensively going through that back section into turn 7, 8, and down into 9.
Look at that bottleneck with the 2 players' cars. Kind of saw a replication of that on the waved off start. I wonder what's going on there. It's like one of those has a problem.
That was Carpentier staying ahead of Tagliani. We could see Mauricio Gougelin trying to take advantage of their fight, but was unable to.
Dario Franchitti leads the field across the line of the first lap of full competition, followed by Tracy, De Ferran, Castroneves. Montoya still trying to work on Castroneves, drops back. Then comes De Mada, Fittipaldi, Andretti, Pappas, and Vassar. That makes the top 10. Franchitti doing a pretty neat job of pulling away now.
I should correct, that was Gidley that had moved up one position past Mark Blundell and was trying to get around Carpante and Tagliani. We'll keep our eye on him as well. A number of drivers having problems in qualifying with mechanical problems, not being able to get the most out of themselves to put their cars where they thought they should be. We talked about Cristiano De Mada as one of those. Also, Patrick Carpentier just had a whole host of problems. We should be able to watch those guys move up if they have the opportunity to pass.
One piece of good information for the Team Green drivers, beside the fact that they are running first and second, is that during the past week, both Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti have completed their contract negotiations for next year, so they have no worries. In fact, Tracy has no worries for the next 5 years.
And that's a real relief for a driver. You can do what comes naturally. Just focus on driving the race car. There's always a tremendous amount of pressure to perform, but having that bit of business completed, there's nothing else to think about except just doing the job you know that you can do.
Battle for 10th, Vassar, Moreno, Serbia. Moreno, who had that big win to Cleveland and then seemed to slide downhill after that, looking to fight his way back into the front of the field. Jimmy Vassar, this is an important ride for him. He needs to attract some attention for next year as he is driving out his last year with Target Chip Ganassi.
Some sections of this track you can see, Mark Blundell. And Mark Blundell, that's going into turns 10 and 10A, the slowest part of the track, back in the chicane.
They're locked up there. It would logically bring out a full course caution. And they certainly appear to be. For Patrick Carpentier, the car on the left, they do go to the full course caution. This is a pretty critical race for him. He really needs to show well so that he can put something together for next year. Same is true to a large degree. I would think maybe a Blundell. There's a lot of conversation about his future and whether or not he will stay at Pac West.
And you can see Tagliani just tried to muscle his way by Carpentier. Patrick had no place to go. Blundell comes around the corner. The yellows weren't out yet. He comes in at speed and can't avoid the back of Carpentier's car as he turns in for the right-hander.
Really can't be anything worse than teammates forcing one another into trouble. We've certainly seen it enough at Team Green. Now we're seeing it here at Players Foresight.
And these are the two drivers that we talked about at the beginning of the show, Carpentier and Blundell, and how important this race was for their careers, for their futures. Now watch Mark, he turns in. I'm just in there too hot. And once you're committed, if you're driving on the limit, it's not like you can suddenly move 3 feet to the left. If you're on the limit, the car's committed to go to the point that you've already predestined.
So as you can see, those two cars are not in the world's best position. So out comes the full course caution. They slow the field down after an aborted start. Finally got the race going. When they did, the pole sitter Dario Franchitti dropped right out in front of the field, followed by his teammate Paul Tracy. Back in Vancouver, 6 laps complete, full course caution underway. Kind of a jiggled first couple of laps when you consider that they waved off the start, and then Patrick Carpentier got pushed aside by his teammate Alex Tagliani, and Mark Blundell drove right into the middle of it. There is Carpentier's car as they try to get it clear of the course. The rest of the field circles around. Check this out, though. This is how it happened.
Coming into turn 10 at 130 miles an hour, Tagliani just forces his way down the inside. Carpentier, even if he could have slowed down, just didn't have any place to go. Mark Blundell committed to the corner before the yellow's out. You can see it just waving there in the back. Now watch Carpentier vent his frustration at his teammate, saying, "What were you thinking?"
Carpentier, it's hard to find a nicer, more polite guy in the series. There he is on the left, walking with Mark Blundell. And both of them, this was a very important weekend for them. They both needed to show very well, so it's sad that both are out so very early. It's a lineup under the full course caution. Kenny Breck just totally rolled to a stop on the pit straight. In fact, not far down from where his pits are, but of course they're over the wall and the team can't figure out exactly what to do. Kart safety is on the way to Breck, in fact pulling up behind him right now, and they'll have to take him around. In fact, it'll be a bit of a distance to get him around since this is the pit straight. Don Holliday and Scott Remke,
Here. Kenny, see if the thing starts. Hustle up, grab the rope.
Yeah, they want to get him out of here before he loses a lap. We've heard reports on the radio to have Kenny recycle the ignition. It's just what we heard to Paul Tracy 2 weeks ago at Elkhart Lake, just like rebooting your home PC. Try to get the engine management system back up.
Bump started, and if it doesn't start, pull over and to turn out, hit out.
They've got it started.
All right, go catch the pack. Go catch the pack.
And the pack, as you can see, is directly behind him.
The pack is right behind you. Drive a hard lap here. You got to get around.
That's Scott Repke talking to him, team manager at Rahal Racing for Kenny Breck.
Yeah, Scott runs Kenny Breck's car, and when Rahal has the time, given his other duties as interim kart president, he will run Max Pappas's car. There's the lineup of the field. One of the interesting moves early on was that of Michel Jourdain Jr.
And Michel posted a great qualifying time on Friday, qualified 12th, but on the first lap of qualifying yesterday, he had mechanical problems. We calculated by the gains some of the other drivers made that he could have qualified as high as 4th. He's moved up 2 places. Great start for Michel Jourdain Jr.
Patrick Carpente has made it back to the pits. Jan.
Yes, he has. What happened down there with your teammate? What happened with your teammate?
I don't know. I went sideways. Yeah, I went sideways around the corner there a little bit, and I don't know what it is. He thought he could make it there. There was no way he could pass me there, and he was not even close to being equal to me. And tried to turn. He didn't back out, and I had no place to go, and I hit the wall.
Same case for you, Mark. Just blocked when you got there.
Yeah, just unfortunately, I was just coming in on line now. I was having to take a bit of a wider line. My car was suffering from just a lack of grip. Didn't have any heat yet built up in the tires, and Pat's car was in the way. But you know, I got a monkey in my back this year, but I think he just developed into a gorilla. So that's the end of me.
Yeah, I think both these guys do.
At least Mark Blundell can keep a good attitude about it. The yellow was flying at the flag station at the time Mark headed into the corner, but of course he was already fully committed into that corner. Onto the pit straight again. We should see green. In fact, we do. Again, Christian has trouble. Look at Oriol Servia. Look at Servia come down inside Moreno.
Moreno not giving up, though. He's going to try to get the inside, and he can't do it coming into the 3rd corner.
As you saw, those 3 were battling hard for 10th place in the early lap. Moreno now comes out wide, and Servia comes up to battle with Vassar.
Just an update on Kenny Breck. He just now crossed start finish, so he's about a half a lap behind.
Montoya
beating on the back of Castroneves. And this is where his outstanding car control really comes into play. Still relatively full tanks, cold tires, low tire pressure. These tires this weekend from Firestone, very, very hard.
Oh, look at the variations there. And Castroneves almost completely lost the back end at one point.
Castroneves, I think, just hanging on, trying to get off the corners as best he can while blocking Montoya on the way in.
Montoya is 5th. That's where he qualified. Franchitti, Tracy, De Ferran, Castroneves, then Montoya. And Servia now slow.
Wow! Look at that!
Why?
Well, what happened is Jourdain got held up because Servia came back down the inside. The driver in front backed off to let him through. Jourdain was committed under braking and just rammed into the back of him.
All right, let's try and reconstruct this mess for you. And we start with Servia. As a full course caution comes out again. Well, that's why he was slow. Came out, tagged the wall.
That looks like, was that Tony Kanaan that was in front of Michel Jourdain Jr. there? They came down into the corner. Servia had the inside. Here's Oriol coming off the final corner. Turn number 12 onto the pit straight. Clips the tires with the right rear. Now watch, coming down into the 1st corner. Oriol's on the inside. Michel Jourdain gets it all locked up. Tony Kanaan short braking to let Oriol back down the inside. Jourdain just went down to his normal braking point. Just couldn't get in there that deep.
Jourdain just a victim in that one. And after having what has been a good weekend for his driving, but a terrible weekend in terms of luck.
Well, I think he just anticipated that Tony wasn't going to let Oriol back through and that Tony was going to go down hard on the outside and not ease off so early to let Oriol back down the inside. And I think he just got caught off.
Gary Gerald.
Michel Jourdain acknowledging the appreciation of the fans. From your seat, can you tell us what happened going into this first turn?
Well, Oriol had a problem or something. So I thought Tony was on the outside, and I saw that Oriol had a problem. So I thought Tony was going to go on the outside, and we both were going to go. And Tony just braked too hard, and I couldn't miss. It's a big shame because we had a great car the whole weekend. We were passing a lot of cars, and it's a big shame because the team really deserves a good result. The car was the best car out there, and it's a big shame. You know, yesterday we had a problem in qualifying, and I think we had a good car to qualify in the top 10 or something, but it's a shame. We'll get them next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Especially a shame for Michel Jourdain Jr. Turned 24 yesterday, and as a birthday present, as they started qualifying, he had a brilliant drive on Friday. It put him in the fast group of qualifying. In the very first lap of qualifying, he had a problem, electronic problem on the car, electronic problem. And so they just pushed him off the race course. He wasn't able to get back in a backup car. He wasn't able to get going. And Parker, you calculated it. That guy might have qualified as high as 4th if he'd been given an opportunity to do so.
Well, we looked at the gains of some of the other drivers, and if he were able to match those gains, that would have put him in the top 4 or 5. Not only was Michel's crew very upset, but a lot of the other drivers were also upset that he wasn't given the opportunity to go back out and have a fair shot at qualifying.
Montoya was especially vocal about it. Shinji Nakano in, and he's been in before. He came in, and they topped him with fuel before the green flag. And that got him a black flag penalty. And now that very crafty Scotsman Derek Walker is playing with the tactics of this thing. Remember, he's always fooling around with that fuel window and trying to get his driver off the rest of everyone else's pit stop order, and it has paid off for him. Remember it with Gilles de Ferran at Portland a year ago.
Well, and according to my calculations, the fuel window at 2 miles per gallon opens up at lap 12. We've just completed 13 laps, which means they can go 2 stops to get to the checkered. That means that when everybody else comes into the pits, that will put them back up towards the front of the order.
Adrian Fernandez also been in and out of the pits. Gary?
Yeah, he's one of those that has gambled for the Patrick Racing team. Came in, took on fuel, but not new Firestone tires. He lost 3 positions in the process, but now he's got a little more distance to work with. Meanwhile, they were reporting that they may have a possible mapping problem with the Causeway Power Plant there for Adrian. He's almost stalled a couple of times. We're wondering, maybe just conjecturing, if maybe that's what influenced or resulted in Kenny Breck stalling. If he has similar mapping, he may have run into a problem there that caused him to reboot the engine, get fired up. Now with the yellow, he's caught the pack, he being Breck.
It's an interesting observation as well. Let's go green flag again. By the way, the observers have taken a look at Tony Kanaan's car while he was on course and decided there is no damage. Montoya still working very hard on Elio.
One of the other drivers we want to keep track of is Nemo Gidley. He had a good qualifying effort.
Is he going to get this done?
Oh, look, there it is.
On the outside. I'm really shocked that he even tried it.
Well, then again, it is Juan Montoya.
After all.
Going back to Gidley, qualified 21st. He's up to 14th and was looking to make a move around Tony Kanaan on that last restart.
And Mauricio Gugelmin, that's just a pull-off.
And Tarso Marquez.
Tarso, well, did Tarso pull there? Did both of them end up sliding there? We'll check. For Franchitti, the leader, no problems at all. They're going to try to get Mauricio going again. Maybe we'll find out how that 2 of them got there. Well, they got there together.
Just like that.
They're lucky they didn't take Tagliani with them.
Mauricio turns in for the corner. Tarso drills him from the inside. They're both down the escape road.
Is this another Tagliani situation?
Well, the problem is that, you know, it's one thing to get up next to the guy, but you also have to leave the driver you're passing some opportunity to keep going. You just can't put him down the escape road or into the wall. And remember, it's the responsibility of the overtaking driver to complete the pass safely. In both cases that we've seen now, the driver on the inside has gotten his car down the inside of the driver he's overtaking, but not left him any other place to go than down the escape road. And Mauricio's...
Shut it down. We're done. We're done.
So Brazilian Tony Kanaan climbs out of the car, and the Morris Nunn team is done for the day. I'm going to try to take a look around. We're going to try to find him for you, but looking for Tagliani to see whether or not what I saw is true, which is a big black mark on the nose of his car, and then all you have to decide is on which incident did he actually get that. So the Molson Indy Vancouver continues with Dario Franchitti as the leader. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC station. Well, it continues to be interesting at the Molson Indy Vancouver. We'd anticipated a green flag just as we rejoined you. Nothing's happened since you've been away. But then at the last minute, they pulled the possibility of the green away and went back to yellow. That caught at least two teams unawares because Cristiano De Mada had decided he would come in. The team was set out over the wall, so was Kenny Breck's team. And then when they saw that they were going green, they pulled the equipment back, then they went yellow. So a bit of a confusion there. Tagliani, now take a look at the front nose of that car. He's the reason that we have this yellow right now, and he finally got restarted and going, but those black marks on the nose of the car, that's all as a result of his serious conversation going into turn one with Mauricio Guzman and Tarso Marquez. He punted Tarso, and Tarso goes flying into Guzman. They go off the course. Tag stalls off to the right, finally gets restarted. But Marquez and Guzman are both out of their cars and apparently out of competition. Yeah. We'll go back to green flag with Franchitti still as the leader. Now, Kanaan, they still haven't pulled him out of the car. Jan Bigas, what's going on there?
Well, they actually did. He was out of the car. He was ready to do an interview with us. We ran down to cover what we thought were going to be pit stops. Now he's back in the car because they fixed it. So he's going to go out and get some valuable time. They fixed the damage for the rear suspension. It's kind of a test day for him, but you never know. With this attrition, he might get some points.
Pace picks up by the leader as they look toward the starting stand. Here we go, green again.
Green flag, did it.
And this will be interesting because it looks like Kanaan will exit just in front of the leaders. There he is.
Well, you see Tracy take a big jump over the curb.
Well, I think Tony did the wise thing. He got to the end of the pit out and just stopped there for a moment to let these guys through as best he could.
Well, he's so far behind him, you don't want to stick your nose out into that. Boy, look at them come through that corner.
Yeah, they're through there at 155 miles an hour. If the car's right, it's flat in fifth gear, and they're sideways opposite lock.
Montoya tries it again, but this time Castroneves turns a little bit wider.
He's been working on Castroneves on every one of these restarts, and he just can't seem to figure out how to make a pass stick. Montoya, the first of the Toyota-powered cars, 4 Hondas at the front. Everyone up and down the pit lane just saying, wow, Honda has come up with something really big. Started in testing about a month and a half ago at Road America, dominating here.
Look at Gidley and Barron on the move. For that matter, look at Luis Garcia Jr. really jumping forward. So Parker, let's take this thing out. They had several teams were ready to go ahead and stop, make their pit stop. They were going to do it under the caution. They decided not to. There is a very real possibility, I would think, that this race turns into a timed race at 2 hours. So now you're managing one of these teams. What are you going to do?
Well, the other thing we haven't discussed, Paul, in that greater strategy is because the fuel window is so big here that making it 2 stops is easy is who's short-filled at the start. In other words, started with less than full fuel, trying to get the most speed out of the driver in the car at the very beginning stages. These cars should easily go 35-plus laps on a tank of fuel. I think some of these drivers might come in sooner, but we've seen Fernandez and the Patrick team try to play the other strategy to come in early, get back out, and hopefully be out of sequence so that they gain track position when the rest of these guys if all goes well, according to Pat Patrick, have to pit under the green.
We look down at the Honda Helicam as they make the turn into the first turn here at Concord Pacific Place. The Scotsman Dario Franchitti running in front, followed by his teammate Paul Tracy. De Ferran, Castroneves, Montoya.
Franchitti now with a 1.4 second lead on that last lap. Remember, we've had 9 different winners in 14 races this year. None of those winners have been Dario Franchitti. Very surprising, since he was our pick at the beginning of the year to win the championship.
Take a look at the teammates for you. Franchitti is completing his 22nd lap. 10 of those 22 have been run under full course caution.
On board once again with Juan Montoya. As we've seen in races past, Montoya with the onboard during practice and qualifying, lots of opposite lock, really hustling the car. But once the race starts, saw this 2 weeks ago at Road America, much smoother, much more precise.
This track winds back and forth underneath the bridge. And so that's why you get the breakup in the onboard camera footage. Montoya seems to accept his position behind Castroneves, at least for the moment. He was much more aggressive earlier on.
And at the front, Franchitti's been pulling out about 4 to 5/10 of a second per lap. His lead over Tracy now 2.6 seconds.
So Montoya, the defending series champion, defending race champion, sits back in 5th place right now. Jan Beekes?
Well, Paul, when you say that he sits back, that has been the strategy for the Ganassi team in the past. If they do not feel that they can make a pass on the racetrack, they will tend to turn the fuel down, ride around, and save fuel. That means when you make your next pit stop, you don't have to put as much fuel in the car. You can be faster on pit road, and that's why so often the Ganassi team picks up positions in the pits.
Jan Beekes, as long as we have you, what are you hearing up and down pit road on the race strategy now, and especially the first stop?
Well, a lot of people are waiting to see what Team Green does for obvious reasons. So much of the radio communication was, don't pit unless the leaders do. And actually, Michael Andretti said, well, that doesn't help because I can't see the leaders. But that's what they're doing right now, waiting to see what the top team is going to do. Gary?
One of the concerns for Team Cool Green is fuel consumption with the Honda power plants. Tony Cicali told me right before the start of this race, and he is hooked up, of course, with Paul Tracy, that he says we just don't get the fuel mileage that the Cosworth do. And in particular, they're concerned about Roberto Moreno. We've talked about his amazing ability many times to just squeeze out an extra couple of laps. And I said, Tony, you're not saying that there's the possibility of somebody going one stop. He smiled. He says, we are concerned about that possibility. They get enough yellow, that would be the team to try it. So throw that into the mix. I still think that would be an extreme long shot, even though we've had a lot of yellow thus far.
Yeah, I don't know how Moreno's going to save fuel. We've been watching him, Gary. He's working in a full-way battle. Vassar, Moreno, Servia, and then Nemo Gidley. And that's a 4-way round running for 10th place. Back at the front of the field, here's Dario Franchitti. He's completed 24. Scotsman has taken the pole, took the track record for the pole, and has led ever since then. It's 4 Hondas and then a Toyota that make up the top 5. Our first Toyota Spotlight takes a look at Paul Tracy, who, with his personal level of courage, is pretty awesome on temporary street circuits with his win at Long Beach. And then, of course, he made the podium 3rd at Toronto. And here today, he runs in 2nd place behind his teammate, Dario Franchitti. 28 laps are complete by the leader. Leaders have just begun to overhaul some cars in the back of the field. And the game now goes to when these crews are going to bring them in and actually refuel them. Trying to predict where the end of the race is going to fall is not going to be all that easy. Scheduled at 90 laps, but it could end at 2 hours. In fact, I would think right now it may be likely that it would do that, but that's the decision the teams have to make. Here's been one of the better battles throughout the day, and it gets a little tighter. Vassar, Moreno, Serbia. Look at, got the wicker bill on the rear wing sticking out to the right side of the wing. Shouldn't be a big problem. Shouldn't affect them that much. And then Gidley pulled right in there, and for that matter, so is Adrian Fernandez.
But if you're Gidley and you know that there's a mechanical problem with the car in front of you, if you can see that wicker bill coming off the back of Oriole's wing, you're inspired to drive even harder to try to take advantage of a situation. It may not be that bad, although downforce is at a premium in these cool conditions with these hard tires. But Gidley has been after Oriole now for a number of laps trying to figure out how to get by.
What a good choice Gidley has been for car owner John Della Penna.
Well, he is so committed. He comes to all the tests, all the races prior to getting this ride with Della Penna. If a guy ever wanted it, he certainly is the guy to put in the car. He's paid his dues, put in the requisite effort, and certainly deserves this opportunity.
Now, Parker, the thing I'm wondering about Serbia is, wait, there's the stats on Gidley. Serbia sits just ahead of him. You're looking at the wicker bill thing out there. Remember, Serbia got it into the tires on the right side of the car coming off at turn 12 and onto the pit straight. Well, if the wicker bill got kicked over, of course, it's pretty easy to kick over, but what about the rest of the structure back there?
Well, it seems that he's going pretty well watching his lap times. Keep in mind when they do come in for that first round of pit stops, it'll be easy for the crew hopefully to slide that back in. But as you said, I think maybe just slapping the wall was enough to get that wicker bill to come out. Now there is a catch that normally has to be released for that to be displaced, so it's kind of interesting that that occurred during that little incident.
See Moreno kick it loose and then get it back as he came off the corner. Well, I love it when they come through that corner with the back end slide, and what a great view that is. And our pictures today are in fact being provided by our colleagues at Molstar.
And you can see in some portions of the circuit how rough it is. What springs to mind, they'll shift nearly 2,200 times during the course of the 90 laps. We had lots of gearbox failures 2 weeks ago at Road America. It makes you wonder, makes you consider what might happen with reliability, especially if the Renard gearbox is here today.
Dario Franchitti works on his 32nd lap. He's led all the way now. He's nearly 6 seconds ahead of that man, Paul Tracy. Then the two Penske cars. But you got to look way back to find them, because they're another 7 seconds behind Team Green. Luis Garcia Jr. gets put a lap down by the leader, now by Paul Tracy. And Gil de Ferran, the third place car, 12 seconds back from the leader, Franchitti. And his teammate back another 2 seconds, and Montoya just sitting there playing the vulture role right now. De Mada back behind Montoya.
Montoya just filling Castroneves' mirrors, not close enough to actually get a pass done. But he just wants to make sure that Elio knows that he's there, waiting for the smallest mistake, an opportunity to try to take advantage of that mistake and get by.
We're showing you the different engines in the series and who has what engine. It's been a great battle this season.
And he's close enough here. And he looks to the outside again, coming down into the corner off the end of the back straightaway. And he knows he can't get the pass done. He just wants to harass Castroneves as much as he can. Try to distract him from looking ahead.
Same move lap after lap. You remember the incident, Tagliani Marquez, Mauricio Guzman. Jan, what's Mauricio saying?
Well, right now he's just sitting in the timing stand. Tell us what happened down there in the corner and the contact with Marquez.
I think Tarso had a puncture on his right rear, right in the end of the straight. So the tire exploded, and he lost the contact with the front wheels, locked everything up, and just T-boned me. Wasn't his fault, but I had nowhere to go.
Man, you and Mark have just not had it going your way, have you?
No, Vancouver hasn't been kind this year, but we'll be back.
Thanks.
And if he had a right rear go down, I think we can attribute that to Alex Tagliani getting into the back of Tarso Marquez.
Yeah, it looked like a good portion of Tarso's tire was on the surface of Tagliani's nose on the race car.
Montoya side by side now.
Montoya working on Helio Castroneves, and once again, same place, same result.
He certainly has all of Castroneves' attention now.
What didn't make a difference was as these two came up on Luis Garcia Jr., now most of the rest of the field is having to maneuver around Garcia. And in doing that, of course, especially when they get back to that battle for 10th, Vassar and Moreno, Serbia, Gidley, Fernandez. It's going to be interesting how they use him. Looking from above, that corner for Montoya. Way out there. Straightaway was just a little too short.
Well, he just came through turn 5 brilliantly, carrying more speed than Castroneves. And you got to be careful not to get suckered into trying to pass going down at the end of that straightaway, because it goes from 38 feet to 100 feet and there narrows back to 35 feet again.
Why, this battle, Castroneves and Montoya, Jan, it's terrific.
It is terrific, and I keep thinking, how could you possibly pass on the outside going into turn 6? And then remember, this morning in the Indy Lights race, we actually had a move for the lead where that move was completed. So maybe Montoya was watching the big screen and saw that and just kept that one in his back pocket.
You know, I'm glad to hear you say that as a former Indy Lights champion, former Champ Car driver, and certainly a driver school instructor, because I wonder what he's doing way on the outside in that position as well. The Molson Indy Vancouver, 34 laps of the 90 complete. It's Dario Franchitti that is putting on the show for the crowd here in Vancouver. I told you the Canadians love their racing. Well, back at the Molson Indy Vancouver, I'm Paul Page with Parker Johnstone. And we're trying to figure out what happened in that Franchitti's nose there. It just happened. And he may have gotten Shinji Nakano. Let's see here.
Coming up behind Alex Barron, coming into turn 10.
Wandered left, came back right, and looks like he just nudged the right rear of Alex Barron.
They've been working their way through traffic just a few laps ago. Dario lost over 2 seconds trying to get by Shinji Nakano. Paul Tracy has now successfully gotten by him. Franchitti's lead that was at 9 seconds is now down to 6.4 over Tracy. But the two cool green cars now 19.7 seconds ahead of Ferran and the rest.
Here's Oriol Servia on the pit road, the first to make his intended move over there. Servia ran 38 laps. Of course, had a couple of extended yellows in that time, at least 10 of those 38. And the cart official reached out, I think he was just pointing to the wicker bill. Maybe that the wicker bill latch wasn't closed. So Servia becomes the first of the group. What this actually should end up doing is putting Fernandez in the lead of the race. He was able to get around Gidley for 12th place, but remember, Parker, he fueled in one of those yellows where everyone else, or for the most part everyone else, has not.
Well, there are few people as good at the game of strategy as Pat Patrick. He knows when to pit, how to go off sequence with everyone else. It's worked for him time and time again. Right now, Fernandez is 47 seconds back, so almost 2/3 of a lap, actually over 2/3 of a lap from the leader. Just about the time it takes to get in and get out.
Dario Franchitti, leader of the race, comes into the pits. You saw his teammate handle up Alex Barron. Gary Gerald
We're watching now along with the crew. This is the last pit box on pit road. We can see that there's definitely a black mark and some damage on the nose. There was contact with Alex Ferran. The pit boxes have been expanded by 5 feet this year. A little more room to work. No congestion.
Helio Castroneves.
We saw Dario slide wide on the pit exit there.
Actually, Parker, I was wondering, we cut away from it, I wonder how wide.
Well, I was thinking
over, but you can't get 4 over.
And if he climbed over the top of that curb and damaged the car, I was thinking the same thing.
Max Pappas.
31, thanks. 31, thanks. Ready, answer day. Thanks. Solid. Tracy's coming in next, Kyle. Tracy's coming in next.
And Paul Tracy now heads down the pit road as Pappas goes out. Gary?
Well, we'll keep an eye. It looks like right behind him the crew is ready as well for Roberto Moreno. That extra bit of room leaves Tracy plenty of room to glide right in on his marks, and the usual procedure begins. Fresh tires, 35 gallons of methanol, 2, 3, 3.5, 4 turns up there on the right front wing. Revs come up, Tracy moving. We got him just under 13 seconds.
Christian Fittipaldi. First of the 2 Newman Haas cars in. Away without incident. Target Chip Ganassi is laid out for both Montoya and Jimmy Vassar. Vassar is the first of those 2 to stop. Paul Tracy picked up the lead of the race when Franchitti came in. And of course, during these stops, all of that will turn over quite a bit now. In for Patrick Racing, Roberto Moreno. Here comes Jill. Jill De Ferran, who took up second place behind Tracy. And he has a long run again all the way down to the far end of the pits. Penske and Cool Team Green, they're both way down at the far end. Gary?
Jill De Ferran getting his first service of the day. We watch from the back of the car. He has the luxury of an open area in front of him. His teammate Castroneves has already pitted, and Jill De Ferran is rolling. About 12.5 seconds on my watch.
And Gary, I think that Montoya picked up a couple of spots there. 8.6 seconds on pit road. I don't think they took all the fuel.
So the game gets even more interesting if he didn't take on a full load of fuel, which is very likely and probably pretty bright to do.
That stop was blindingly quick. I watched him come in. I looked down the pit lane for a moment, looked back up, and he was leaving.
Yeah, I wondered if he was in. Well, as De Ferran came in, he became the leader of the race, crossing the line on the pit lane. De Mada came in as well. So looking up and down the pit lane, it appears that of that first group, all of the stops are in fact now complete.
With the exception of Michael Andretti, who has not pitted yet. Now, we intercepted a radio conversation. Mario said, Michael, stay out as long as you can.
There's Michael.
And it's lap 44, Paul.
And he is the last of the lead group to do it, as you said, lap 44. Tim Coffeen with the helmet cam, just waiting for that fuel. Now, Michael did get all the fuel. Little longer stop. Maybe he's thinking about a one-stop strategy if we get some yellow.
Boy, it's going to be close, isn't it? He's got a long run because he's the first pit after pit in. So he has to go the whole distance under the pit speed limit, turn to the right, and join the race.
Well, we had a lot of yellow in the first half of this race. It's going to be nearly impossible without the same amount of yellow for Michael to make this in one stop.
Tell you what, Team Green did a nice job, though, because with all the stops now complete, I expected both Gidley and Fernandez to end up at the front of the field, but Team Green got both Franchitti and Tracy out. Whoa! Which of the Penske cars? Straight off the end into the tire barriers. Safety team is there. It is, Elio.
Look at the right front.
Just collapsed suspension on the right front.
He must have made contact previous to this. But imagine how helpless you are. 195 miles an hour, no brakes, and no control.
Car goes into a spin that scrubs off a good deal of the speed, but still ends up head-on into the tire barriers, and our videotape guys are now going to be scrambling to try to figure out exactly when that failure happened.
Because if he brushed the wall earlier, it wouldn't fail until you've got the loading of over 3 Gs under braking. Maximum downforce being achieved. Now watch, he comes in, the right front collapses. He's got his foot on the brake as hard as he can, but he's just a passenger at this point.
Now here's something interesting. At the start-finish line, they are showing a black flag to Gilles de Ferran. Now why are they going to do that? Apparently on the pit exit he committed a violation. Let's take a look here.
This is what we thought may have happened to Dario Franchitti, but De Ferran definitely gets all the way out right in the front of Tagliani, nearly collects him.
Roger Penske, team owner. Not a whole lot of question about the call on that penalty, so De Ferran answers the black flag for what will be a stop and go. Nemo Gidley makes his stop at the same time. You'll see him come into the picture here behind De Ferran. There's Gidley. That's just a routine stop. Remember, he's out of sequence. So De Ferran rolls on. Gidley joins the fight at speed, and Franchitti remains the leader. Beautiful cruise ships that come here into Vancouver. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations.
This Wide World of Sports update brought to you by Mobile One. Nothing outperforms Mobile One.
In this mobile update, we remember Greg Moore. This has been a very emotional weekend for the family, the Cart family, the Greg Moore family, all of those fans of Canada who knew the Maple Ridge, British Columbia native who was so spectacular in his all-too-short Champ Car racing career. Among the festivities today, perhaps the most famous number 99 in the history of sports, Wayne Gretzky, was here to command the engines to be started.
Gentlemen, start your engines!
And of course, the number 99 that Greg Moore drove to such great success in his short kart career. The number has now been officially retired from Champ Cars in the FedEx Series, also in the Atlantic Series and the Indy Lights Series. Bobby Rahal presenting a plaque today to Rick Moore, the father of Greg. There's been a tremendous amount of money raised for the Greg Moore Foundation this weekend, well over $150,000. The emotions have been running high, but certainly fond remembrances of a young man who had such a great impact on all of us in his very short racing career. Bob?
Well, no change since we left the racetrack. Franchitti, Tracy, they're back at the front again, followed by now Fernandez and Montoya. But Fernandez, you would anticipate a stop about any time, wouldn't you, Parker?
It's got to be in the next lap or two. But look at this fight now as Franchitti, who was back up to almost a 9-second lead, has been trying to get by Roberto Moreno. We've seen Tracy struggling to get by Oriol Servia in that group as well. Moreno's going to do everything he can not to go a lap down.
Tracy now clear of Servia. Both Franchitti and Tracy had a little problem, both with Servia and, in fact, a couple other cars as they were trying to come around. Tagliani, you got a glimpse of him. He, of course, is one lap behind the lead in 17th, and he's slow because he's just coming up to speed off of his pit stop.
And by passing Moreno, now Dario has lapped through 12th place.
Well, the yellow flag standing there, and I'm not sure why. We'll try and find out for you.
I'm not sure if they're still trying to rearrange the tires from Castroneves off is why that yellow is being displayed.
Whoa, Shinji Nakano. A lot of parts and pieces. Shinji looks to be okay.
You okay, Shinji? Yeah, I'm okay. All right, they'll come get you. Sit tight for a minute.
That's in between turns 7 and 8 back in by the support pit area.
I'm sorry. It was my fault. My mistake. Okay, just sit tight. They'll be there in a minute.
That brings out a full course caution, and it brings Adrian Fernandez in, Gary.
Yeah, remember, he's out of sequence. He had that early stop. This time he'll get a turn of front wing up front, as well as the obligatory tires and fuel. He's gone. And Paul, just an interesting note on his teammate Moreno. Oh, we got a problem. We're anticipating that Tracy is coming in a moment. Jan, go ahead.
Yes, but in the meantime, Kenny Breck is taking his service. We see Christian Fittipaldi and Gilles de Ferran comes by us, so a bunch of people taking advantage of this yellow. Certainly was exactly what Kenny Breck had been hoping for. The revs are up, the rev limiter. Wow, 12.7 seconds and all the revs. Remember, he stalled it recently. Wasn't going to do that today.
And there's de Ferran on his way out. Watch the curb. He does. Keeps it below the curb. And Dario Franchitti also heads for his pit. Gary?
We'll see what the service is here for Dario. We expect it to be routine. They're not going to change tires. Just top him off with fuel and hope. Oh, he stalls the engine. They push. It doesn't engage. Tracy flies by him, and the Canadian crowd roars its approval behind it. Problems for Franchitti continue.
And just a roll and push. He's okay there, but that exchanges the lead. Canadians love seeing Paul Tracy in front. Of course, it happens under full course caution. It can happen there on the pit stops.
And as Jan talked about, he said Kenny Breck just exploded out of his pit box. Because remember, Kenny threw the lead of a raceway not too long ago, stalling. And that's why you've just got to stand on the throttle on the pit limiter and then just let the clutch sidestep the clutch and let it fly.
We'll look again at Dario Franchitti's
Expected to be routine.
And that's where he stalled it. Now they yell for them to push it rather than go for the starter engine, and then off went Paul Tracy and into the lead.
Nice little bit of stunt work there by one of the Team Cool Green members.
You talk about Canadian fans, there they are again. And they are very happy that Paul Tracy now picks up the lead of the race. 53 laps will be completed by the leader as he comes across the line. Welcome back to the Molson Indy Vancouver. I'm Paul Page with Parker Johnstone. Full course caution while they get the car of Shinji Nakano off the track. They've actually gotten it off the track, but there's still a little bit of cleanup to do. We're going to run through the full field for you with Paul Tracy now as the leader of the race. He picked up the lead during this caution period, and with the pit stops, fast laps of the race, they've all had the name Franchitti sitting on them, Parker.
Well, 13 of the 15 fastest laps have been Franchitti. The other two, Paul Tracy with the 10th and 13th quickest lap. Should be interesting to see if Franchitti can hunt Tracy down, and then will there be fireworks if and when a pass occurs.
Gary Gerald.
Quick note from Barry Green. He has told the team, including Dario's team, that unless Tracy gets pressure from behind, or if the team gets pressure behind, this is the way they will stay, with Tracy in front. Remember, he's in the championship hunt. Dario is not. Tracy has already said, I don't want any tricky moves from Dario.
Yeah, there was an accident during the week here. Involved operation manager for the Molson Indy, Dave Lambert. He suffered some pretty serious burns on Wednesday, and now he's at Vancouver General Hospital. Part of the success of this track is due to him. We hope he makes a quick recovery. Our Toyota Spotlight takes a look at Roger Penske's team, who has been very powerful on the natural terrain road courses. Consider their finish at Mid-Ohio, but at Elkhart Lake, they ran into trouble. In fact, both of them did. Remember Helio Castroneves on the very first lap? Paul Tracy went on to win that race. Today, on the street circuit, well, it's not been all that much better. Castroneves, after breaking suspension, fortunately he's okay. And Gilles de Ferran had his problems as well. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, we just were trying to update after all of this drama here, what happened to Helio Castroneves when we saw him take that wild ride down the back straightaway. Whether or not there was contact early on or if there was a failure, Tim Cindric said we have had no conversation with Helio. We honestly don't know, but they marveled at his ability, even as crippled as that car was, and at that high speed, that it didn't end up doing much more devastating damage to the car as he finally ended up down in the tire barrier, but kept it basically off the concrete walls.
And Gilles de Ferran has fallen all the way back to 9th place. Alex Tagliani, under this full course caution, we kind of were expecting him to get back to green, and he just spun the car. How did he get there? Let's take a look, Parker.
Well, you can see coming down onto the long back straightaway. You know, a lot of the drivers, as they're getting ready to go green, spin the rear tires in order to try to get heat in them, and it may have just gotten away from him while he was doing that.
Awful lot of smoke there, so you kind of wonder that isn't all impact stuff. Also makes it wonder whether or not, now he's obviously got a power plant.
Well, he's been having a bad day, not only for himself, but for some others as well.
A lot of interesting things going on down at Team Green during this caution as well, Gary.
Well, they have been conversations here on the radio have been flying back and forth, and I think certainly the most intriguing one, Paul, was the one from Dario Franchitti's seat. Remember now, he's running number 2nd, stalled the car on the pit stop, got it back out in 2nd place, and Barry Green had told the teams that that's the way they're going to run now with Paul out in front. Dario poses the question, well, what happens if I'm running 2 seconds faster than the car in front of me, laddie? And nobody has an answer to that thus far.
Yeah, and nobody seems to have an answer for Tagliani's problem, so it looks kind of permanent now. He got into the barrier after he got restarted. That right front looks a little askew compared to the left front. I don't know what they're going to do with him now.
Well, whatever voodoo hexing that Carpentier and Blundell have put on him are now working.
Car owner Jerry Forsyth is taking this weekend off and isn't at the track. And I hope he hasn't done too much damage to his television set sitting at home watching all of this. So that's how Tagliani.
Fast and wide, straight into the tires.
Jan Beekes.
Well, Chip Ganassi is in conversations right now with Dennis Swan, who is the pit steward. But we were wondering, why did Juan Montoya not pit? Well, unfortunately, it turned out that Chip Ganassi got on the radio to tell Juan to pit a fraction of a second too late. He was past the pit entrance. Not what they wanted. They're going to ride around and see if maybe they get some luck with a later yellow, but they certainly wanted to be on pit road to take on fuel when everybody else did.
I know it's pretty soon, Jan, but do you have any idea what the nature of this conversation might be?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm going to give that some thought, and then I'll check with Dennis. I'll see if I can find out.
Good, safe answer. So we are under the full course caution. 57 laps have been completed by the leader. The leader is Paul Tracy, with some team orders out there to take it real careful between Tracy and Franchitti. Montoya will come back to the flag in 3rd place, followed by De Mada, Fernandez, Fittipaldi, Gidley, Andretti, De Ferran, and Kenny Breck. So the field will be bunched once again. It is keeping everybody together, but it'll be a tight start. Miami versus Washington. Check your local listings. College football is underway once again next Saturday. Look down from the Honda Helicam, the Falls Creek, the area, the former side of the World's Fair, and the beautiful downtown of Vancouver. The teams love coming here. So now that conversation between race officials and Chip Ganassi, Jan Beekes?
Well, it turns out he was simply asking, could they pit now? And so that means that it wouldn't be very good for your track position, but they are thinking that they might have to come on pit road to pit. And in fact, they're rolling out behind me. They're bringing out the tires for Juan Montoya. So this is not really what you want, but they're figuring, you know what, if we don't do it now, it's going to cost us more later on.
Because this will drop him to dead last. And keep in mind, it looks like everyone can go to the checkered flag without an additional stop. So Montoya will have to fight his way back up through the field.
And Jim Swintel, the starter, does have the green flag in his hand. He signals to the field to pick up the pace. Montoya's crew pulls the equipment back over the wall. They're apparently now not going to stop him, though Tagliani's team is out over the wall anticipating his arrival. So there may not be serious mechanical damage on that car. They may actually get him back into the run. Pace should come up. Paul Tracy will lead the field back to the green flag. Moreno's caught there in 3rd place, but he's a lap down. Well, this is ripe with possibilities, isn't it?
Well, we've seen contact between these two before.
Oh, Christian and Gidley go side by side. De Ferran tries to get Michael. Breck tries to get De Ferran.
Look at Gidley. Flat track the car onto the back straightaway.
And look at that group. Anybody's guess there. Look at the back end track when they come through that little kink there. Boy, that's some great racing.
Very, very bumpy coming down that straightaway. Oh,
Michael's going to run off.
Michael's in too hot.
Fortunately, he didn't have to run it down the escape road.
But that was close. He got his foot back off the brake just in time to regain some directional control. Kept it on the track.
And De Ferran, Breck, Andretti, Pappas, they're all sitting back from 8th on back. Look at this. Michael just locks him up. Everybody else can turn in, though. Pappas was pretty close on it, too. Michael gets it turned before the runoff and is able to rejoin. Moreno and Serbia, you see the two of them, the black car Moreno, the yellow-green car of Serbia. They're trying to just stay in position. They are not part of the battle for the lead. Montoya, there is Montoya, just behind Serbia. He's current 3rd place. But Moreno and Serbia, that is a battle for position. They're fighting for 13th, a lap off the lead. First, second.
Tracy coming up behind Tagliani. Gets by easily coming down the pit straight. When you think about the orders of Team Green, keep in mind Paul Tracy in 6th place, only 25 points out of the championship lead. Dario Franchitti down in 13th, 65 points out.
Good move by Tagliani, lets everybody through. We begin to play into the end game with Paul Tracy having completed 61, working on the 62nd. Franchitti just a second back from him. Montoya still has a little bit of traffic to overhaul, and it's Honda, then 2 Toyotas. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC station.
This Wide World of Sports update brought to you by Mobile One. Nothing outperforms Mobile One.
Our second mobile update of the afternoon from Vancouver deals with the earlier race today in the feeder series to the Kart FedEx Championship Series, the Dayton Indy Lights. And boy, was there a lot of commotion on the start of this race. 3 drivers, Chris Meniga, Jason Bright, and also Andy Voss involved in this tangle going into turn number 1. And then there was high drama later on in a battle from the front row contenders. Philippe Giafoni, who had led the early stages of the race, challenged by Scott Dixon, the season points leader, and a high-speed outside pass going into turn 6. And Dixon wins his 4th race of 8 that have been contested this year and further strengthens his championship points lead. He's also looking at a possible opportunity to get a ride in a Kart FedEx car before the season is complete, possibly at Surfers Paradise. You can see that race in its entirety tonight on ESPN2. Paul?
Well, since we left the champ cars on the track, as no major changes, though one rather interesting exchange. That was between Montoya and Moreno. Now, Moreno, remember, is a lap behind the lead. Montoya is just trying to get around him so that he can continue his battle in 3rd place. So this is Montoya in pursuit of Moreno.
And he's setting Moreno up for pass number 1 on this next lap. Gets a good exit coming onto the pit straight and says, no matter how late you brake, Roberto, I'm just braking later, and gets the pass done.
Now, the hint there is pass number 1.
Exactly.
Because then, all of a sudden, and without much of an explanation, Montoya slowed down.
Comes onto the long back straightaway, trying to find a gear, can't find anything. Moreno goes by. And then to add injury to insult, Montoya says, I've passed you once, I shall pass you again. And does so going off the long back straightaway.
And should you dare get in front of me yet again,
I will pass you once again.
Tracy leads it. He picked up the lead on the pit stop when Dario Franchitti stalled the engine. Franchitti is the only driver right now in the top 5 without a win this year. Tracy, Montoya, De Mada, Fernandez, they've all won. Jan Vikas.
Well, speaking of Montoya, he is going to be here on pit road in a lap or two. So this is not what they wanted. They are now going to be forced to pit under green.
The lineup of when everybody pitted last, but we've still been watching Montoya, and he's flying.
He's just now caught up to the back of Franchitti. He gained 1.2 seconds alone up to Tracy. Now, obviously, he's on a light fuel load. These tires for this weekend are so hard that tire wear really hasn't been an issue. But the big question is here, look at Montoya and De Mada. We know that Montoya got caught out. We're still trying to figure out why Cristiano De Mada did not pit with everyone else on that last yellow.
All right, so Jan Bigas, why hasn't De Mada been in?
Well, that's the question I asked to Cal Wells, his team owner. Behind me, by the way, Tagliani has come in and shut the car off, so it looks like his day is done. And Cal Wells' answer was, it wasn't that we missed the pit. We didn't want to pit. We wanted to leave him out. And I said, why? He says, well, we'll just see how it unfolds.
Interesting answer. Gary Gerald, Paul Tracy's the leader.
Yeah, and a precautionary reminder on his radio from his team in the pits about protecting and taking care of the gearbox. Remember all the problems that you've addressed relating to the last race at Elkhart Lake that Tracy ended up winning with that charge from the back of the pack. There were so many gearbox problems. We talked with the team right before the start of the race about that. They said, you know, a lot of those reasons haven't been pinpointed. We are definitely concerned. And they said, you must be precise. Problems for Montoya.
Montoya stopped on the racetrack. The crew had laid out for him.
Did he run out of fuel, Paul?
Look at Chip. He knows exactly what happened. Fuel, right, Jan?
Yes, that's right. That's what we heard. He's out of fuel, didn't make it. They had laid out the tires on pit road. Remember, they miscalculated also at Mid-Ohio. That's twice this year.
And that's 10 DNFs now, if in fact he won't be able to continue.
This guy's led more laps than anybody else by a healthy margin, and yet things beyond his control continue to go wrong. How very frustrating.
Full course caution comes out again. Montoya's not in a place they want to leave him. They want to be able to get him off of the course. What surprises me is that Montoya has taken all of those DNFs with a rather philosophical air.
Well, we've talked about it in the past, Paul. This time last year, if this would have happened, he would have been one hot, screaming Colombian. This year, he just shrugs it off. Obviously, he's out of here. The results, although he wants to do well, everyone knows he's one of the world's best. He's just waiting for his opportunity to leave and go on to Formula One.
And I kind of expect that if you were going to make such an announcement in the move to Formula One, probably with the U.S. Grand Prix at Indianapolis would be the time to make that. Jan Bikas.
Well, I just ran up to Cristiano De Mada's pit because I expected he'd be on pit road. They don't even have tires out. It appears as though what Cal Wells was saying was they were going to try and make it to the end. They weren't planning on stopping at all.
What's going on there?
That's amazing if he's gotten that kind of fuel mileage, because no one else has been able to come even close. But this yellow is exactly what they needed. I don't know how much yellow they need, but as we can see, Montoya's car has been cleared.
Our calculations on the stops, Tracy stopped 17 ago. So did Franchitti. But you just saw the calculation with De Mada 27 laps ago. He made his stop.
Well, and they should be able to go 35, maybe 40. But we've got 21 laps to go. It'll be interesting to see if he can make it.
Tracy, Franchitti, De Mada, Fernandez, top four. And a very interesting game. The leader, Paul Tracy, is working his 71st lap, 90 the scheduled distance, and they will go green as they come onto the front straight. Green flag comes out.
Green flag, green flag.
Here comes Franchitti. Franchitti looks inside. Bit of a scramble behind these guys. Moreno, Serbia, Cristiano De Mada with Montoya gone. De Mada right there. He is the third place car. Cristiano's got to get clear of those two if he wants to get into this race.
There may be team orders right now, but Paul Tracy definitely under attack from Dario Franchitti.
I think the order only was that you can't pass. Didn't say you can't get alongside.
Yeah, but if you're Paul Tracy and you have that sort of order standing, you really want your teammate just to back off a little bit. They've got exactly what they want. They've got a few cars in between themselves and Cristiano De Mada. Cristiano De Mada, oh, Kenny Breck slowing down.
Kenny Breck looks like he brushed the wall, slowed down, came back into it. We don't know how serious that brush was. It was just an observer report.
As I was going to say, the Team Green cars can run a lot more horsepower. They're not on any sort of fuel conservation strategy at this point. Cristiano De Mada, if Cal Wells has got him doing this on one stop, has to be very, very careful with his fuel. And you can see the gap that they've pulled now between Franchitti and De Mada, 3.7 seconds.
As they complete another lap, key passing zone, turn 1, and Franchitti does not try it. Elio Castro-Neves is with Gary Gerald.
And a long way back to the pit, but Elio is now here. Was there a failure in the front suspension, or did you hit the concrete that caused that problem?
To tell you the truth, Gary, I had no idea what happened. Just brake and that thing broke, but I was very happy with the battle with Montoya, and I was having so much fun. I like racing like that, you know. I like go forward, but unfortunately sometimes you don't have the fast car. But it was good. It was a good battle.
Rare when you see a guy this happy, even though he wasn't able to finish a race. Thanks, Elio.
Thank you.
Jan?
And for Alex Tagliani, he has climbed from the car. Obviously, everyone in here, the Canadian crowd, wants to find out what happened. Alex, first of all, tell me what happened with your teammate early on in the race.
Actually, Pat flipped the wall in turn 9 and got sideways coming out of turn 9. And just to avoid his car, I went inside of turn 10, and I was already committed between the tires and his car. I was not able to slow down. I was in his side pod, and it was not a corner where you can go two cars sideways. So it's just unfortunate for him, and after that I got pushed into the tires by Adrian, and we broke the direction, I think, and the car was not competitive enough after that.
The problem later when you got in the tires head on, that was steering related?
Yeah, exactly. When I got in the tires in turn 1 and 2, the alignment of the car was so wrong that I was not able to steer the car, and we had to overslow the car into the corners, and we were going very slow on the track.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks.
So there's a chronology of a busy day for Tagliani that finishes him up in 18th place. We showed you a little bit of Kenny Breck while we were talking with Tag. Here it is from Max Pappas' view.
Coming off that long back straight where we've seen so much action today, watch the left side of your screen. There's Kenny Breck, clips the tires. Max says, well, I'll take advantage of that. Thank you very much. You can see Alex Barron's got it all locked up. Garcia trying to stay out of everybody's way. Kenny Breck gets nudged by Jimmy Vassar. Clips the left rear. A good bit of driving by Kenny Breck there to keep it off the wall.
That was a pretty good smack on Vassar as well. Gidley's point of view.
Oh, man.
So in the Ray Hall pits, they look for Kenny Breck to bring it on around. At the front, it remains Tracy and Franchitti. Somebody must have said something because they've gone back to a pretty static formation.
Yeah, that's enough of a gap where if you're Paul Tracy, you know your teammate's there, but you're not having to worry about him running into you if anything should happen. You want just a little bit of breathing room.
Third place, Cristiano De Mada hasn't been able to do anything at all in terms of getting up to the front of this group. You can see that that's Roberto Moreno that runs just behind the leaders. De Mada is going to make something happen. He's going to have to get forward pretty quick here. Moreno's a lap off the lead. He's in 12th place. So there's the lineup: Honda, Toyota, and then 2 Fords. A lot goes on during the weekend. One of the major events of the year here in Vancouver, the Molson Indy Vancouver. There's first and second, Tracy, Franchitti. Then there is a long interval. It's actually a 10-second interval. Back to Cristiano De Mada as the third place car. Gidley, they brought him into the pits. They had a report that the car was smoking. They brought out the black flag for him. Now he's climbing out.
They've said it's gearbox. We wondered if there would be any failures this weekend after the rash we had 2 weeks ago at Road America. Gidley's brought that car home for John Della Penna in the points. Just about every start he's had. Disappointing for that team.
It was 8th place when he actually pulled out of competition. You know, there is a surprise, Parker. At Road America, gearboxes right and left, tripods in the drivetrain were gone. The dogs on the gears themselves, on the dog rings gone, but we haven't really seen that here. I'm really surprised by that.
Well, I thought about that quite a bit after the Road America weekend, and I can only surmise that because all the drivers were up on the apex and exit curbs, that vibration back through the drivetrain was causing those failures. Also keep in mind,
margins on braking. Look after that gearbox.
that's That's Barry Green telling Paul to be careful with the gearbox. But I would think here, Paul, that even though the track is rough, the gearboxes just aren't taking the beating that they did at Road America. Keep in mind that the engines are developing a lot more horsepower week into weekend, increases that they've never seen in the past. And what was good at the beginning of the season is no longer sufficient to keep these boxes from tearing apart with the increased horsepower and torque.
Well, that last corner looked a little desperate by Franchitti as he locked up the fronts. Jan Beekes?
Well, talking about gearboxes, I've spoken with some of the gearbox guys up and down pit road on these crews, and they say, first of all, that Reynard has come up with a few updates for the gearbox that will help this weekend. But they also said that one of the reasons why they expected maybe a little less trouble here is you don't go down as many gears at one time. At Elkhart Lake, you'd go from 6th, or in some cases with the Lola, 7th gear down to 2nd all in one shot. That seemed to be what was causing the majority of the trouble.
Well, since we aren't talking about attrition, because it has certainly figured into the season, there's some of the numbers with Elkhart Lake, 15 DNFs, and 13 of those attributed to a mechanical problem. Vancouver, look at it today, 10. Pretty big number with some pretty big names like Montoya, Catherine Evans, Guzerman. So we move into the final 10 laps of the run. Paul Tracy has maintained the lead ever since he took the lead when Dario Franchitti killed the engine coming off a pit stop. They pitted at the same time, and Franchitti stalled it. Tracy roared by, took the lead, hasn't given it up since then. We'll be back right after this. No changes since we have left you. Paul Tracy is still leading Dario Franchitti. But then there's a considerable interval, 8 seconds, back to Cristiano De Mada. Roberto Moreno, you see him right there. He has been tracking with the leaders for a number of laps now. Then comes Oriol Servia. He's a lap down as well. There is 3rd place, Cristiano De Mada. But Jan Beekes, it looks like there's some serious concern maybe over in the pits for Cristiano De Mada.
Yes, in fact, there's a lot of whispering going on. They don't want to use the radios because they know we're listening to them, but I just get the feeling from the body English that he might be here for a splash and go, and we're standing by just in case.
We're going to take you all the way to the green flag, commercial free, or all the way to the checkered flag, commercial free. Thank you, Parker. Here's the way the points would end up now. Tracy wins this. It's going to put him up into 2nd place, just 10 points behind Michael Andretti. Gary Gerald.
Quick update here. Paul Tracy continues to be a little bit worried because Dario, of course, is in his mirrors. He calls on the radio and says, do we have a deal with Dario? Barry says, we have a deal.
Well, I know how deals are in the racing paddock around here. I wouldn't believe anybody. But think about how frustrating it must be for Dario Franchitti. You qualify on the pole, you set a track record, you haven't won a race this year, which is, you know, that's pretty important. Paul Tracy's won a few races. You know, he's in the hunt for the championship. For Dario, it's like, well, hey, this might be the break I need to get back into the championship. There's still 132 points available coming into this weekend for that championship fight. So, I mean, it's got to be so frustrating, so tough for Dario Franchitti to fall in behind his teammate and not be allowed to attack.
You know, I don't think you're going to find it in the rule book, but I think you will find out that the white flag in this series also means all deals are on. And we'll see what happens here. 5 to go. Montoya out once again, 10th time this year. Jan.
Yes, already in the street clothes. He has a big smile. Did it all come apart for you when you missed coming on the pit road?
No, what happened was just miscommunication. I told him it was going to go yellow because the car crashed right ahead of me. And, you know, they called me too late. And then the pace car picked me up. And I was beside the pace car to let me by. And it took them half a lap to pit, you know, to let me by. And then we stayed out. And I don't understand what happened. The car still had some fuel in. It's the same as Mid-Ohio. The car had some fuel in and it just stopped.
So you did not run out of fuel. Was some engine-related problem?
Yeah, we needed to stop anyway, but you know we still had some fuel left in the car.
Thanks, Juan.
Okay.
The team for Cristiano De Mada has just stepped over their pit wall, and we expect De Mada to come in for a splash of fuel. Tracy and Franchitti just came across the start-finish line. De Mada slows. He's on the pit road.
2 seconds. You watch Barrett. I'll count it down. Nice and easy.
Okay, Jan Vikas, here it comes.
Right here on Barrett.
Well, it's going to be really quick, but he's going to lose a bunch of spots. 3.2 on my watch, but remember, it's all that 50-mile-an-hour driving that's going to kill you.
I don't even know if you can call that a splash and go, kind of a dribble and run.
2 seconds worth of fuel. They were hoping to get a little bit more yellow, and they could have made it to the end. We heard a radio conversation. They asked him to get 2.4 miles per gallon. Nearly impossible to do around a street course.
And what happens there is Adrian Fernandez is going to come forward. De Mada is going to have a desperate drive just to stay even and keep in the top 10 on this thing.
Keep in mind, De Mada was running in the top 5 comfortably. If he would have come in with everybody else,
Nice and easy and nice and smooth, Paul.
he'd still be right there in the top 4 or 5. So difficult bit of strategy decisions here for Cal Wells and the team.
Tracy Franchitti.
Yeah, you were talking about all bets being off on the white flag. The other thing to keep in mind, Paul Tracy just re-signed for 5 years. Dario only for 1 year. Still looking to make a move to Formula One. If you're looking for short-term gain, you want to have these wins in the record book.
Jan Vikas, what's the strategy?
Well, you know, when you talk about Team Green, you talk about, does Paul Tracy have a deal with Franchitti? I keep thinking about Houston last year. That was when Tracy was leading. Franchitti was in second spot. They said that was Paul's race to win. Had they changed that position, Dario Franchitti would have been the champion last year. And I wonder if that is what has changed the mind of Barry Green, team owner.
Boy, that is an excellent point, and you know that has to be going through both of the drivers' minds as well as certainly the team as well. Fernandez assumed third. De Mada rolled in at 7th. None of those other positions at this moment are in contest. There's Fernandez. Now Christian Fittipaldi is beginning to sneak up on him. Fittipaldi is 4th. De Ferran is in that fight too. So now this becomes a battle. They're just tightened up in that last lap. We're going to be very tight on time. Whoever the winner of the race is, we're going to try to interview on two-way radio. But with all the cautions today, the race is going to run very close to our allotted time. We will try to get at least one word in with whoever it may be. White flag. Now we're going to see.
You got a slow car ahead, nice and smooth now. One more to go.
Tony Sekele, Paul's engineer. Great engineer, great coach as well.
A week ago, Tracy dropped all the way back to 22nd, came roaring up to the field, took the win. Similar performance at Long Beach from 17th, qualified position to the lead. This time he started on the outside of the front row. The pass actually, Franchitti's problem, less than Tracy's pass. Working the final lap.
What a great finish it would be for these two drivers. Very close friends to the late Greg Moore. For Canadian Paul Tracy to win here in Vancouver would mean just a huge, huge amount to the Moore family. I would imagine be a very emotional celebration.
Michael Andretti has fallen off the pace and has begun falling back through the order as we continue to watch the lead. So far, they've been pretty well behaved. Checkered flags in the hands.
Well, King again, great job, beautiful.
Paul Tracy has taken the win. So Paul Tracy has taken the lead, taken the win. Congratulations to Paul Tracy. As soon as Barry Green clears the radio frequency, we'll see if we can actually talk to him. Paul Tracy, this is Paul Page in the booth. Congratulations, 2 in a row, buddy. Our radio transmissions over on the backside of the course with all the buildup. Pretty tough. Paul Tracy, we'll try it again. Congratulations on that victory. He's turned us down. I can understand that. There's the lineup for next week. Paul Tracy takes the win, moves within 10 of Michael Andretti for the points battle. We'll be at the Honda Grand Prix of Monterey on ESPN next week. I'm Paul Page for Parker Johnstone, Jan Vikas, and Gary Gerald on a very interesting day. ABC Sports is online at abcsports.com. Our final Toyota Spotlight looks at the race here today. It has been interesting. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, continuing the tradition of excellence.